Hi everybody, it's February 9th and it is National Pizza Day. So I hope you're lucky enough to get some pizza today. Um, and as I've been doing occasionally in these little video messages, I've been mentioning some of the things that came up in our synodal consultations that to comment on. And one of the things that came up in someone's comments was discontinuing the missals with the mass parts is disappointing. Well, yes, that's true. When I came here, we stopped having missalettes around. And I'll tell you what the reasoning is on that. Simply this: we don't come to Mass to read. Reading is something that people ordinarily do when other people aren't present. For example, you know, when we receive a letter, it's usually because that person isn't there. And so we read because we can't talk to the person personally. They send us a letter. If we like to read books, that's something we usually do by ourselves. You know, we read a book at our home, when we're not doing other things or when we're not with other people. So that's what the function of reading is. It's reading because you're not with other people, you can't communicate face to face with others. So we don't come to Mass to read, but we come together as a community to be with each other and to be attentive to each other. As Jesus says so often throughout the Gospels, so often, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. He doesn't say he who has eyes to see, let him read. He says, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And so we come to be engaged with each other. Now, the Council Fathers in the Second Vatican Council, on their Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy, they say that the Lord is present in his word, since it is he himself who speaks when the Holy Scriptures are read in the church. So the Lord is speaking to us when we hear the Scriptures read at church. Now, if I am speaking to you, if we're together and we're having a conversation, what would it look like if when I'm trying to speak to you, you were reading a book? Or, that wouldn't, that's not what we do when we're together. We talk to each other, we listen, we talk to each other face to face. Certainly when we have any kind of conversation with a friend, when we get together with them, we're talking about things, we don't have a text that we're following along when we're talking with a friend. We also don't have a text to follow along when the priest is preaching his homily either. Okay, there's no text there for us to follow along for that either. So I tell you, it's a little bit unnerving to me too when I am proclaiming the gospel at Mass, and I'm trying to do a good job of that, and I'm looking at people. When I look out at people and I see some people like this, with their nose in a book. I mean, it's the same kind of feeling that one would have if they're having a conversation with someone, and somebody, instead of looking at them and listening, was reading something else. So we come together to be with each other, to look at each other, to listen to each other, and especially at Mass, we should exercise that discipline of listening. Again, we don't come to Mass to read books. We can do that at home. So as far as the Word of God goes, what we ought to be doing sometime during the week in our prayer time is pondering the Scriptures for Sunday, reading those Scriptures on our own in prayer on before we come to Mass on Sunday, to help us to listen more carefully to the Word as it is spoken to us. So that's something we ought to be doing at home in our daily prayer time, is reading the Scriptures for the upcoming Sunday so we can listen more attentively. Recently, as you know, there was just the State of the Union address. Now think about that for a minute. The president gets up and gives a State of the Union. That the chamber is filled with everybody from Congress, both houses of Congress, and sometimes even Supreme Court justices. So what would it look like if, they somehow had the president's speech and they all came to this one place and they all were reading the speech, the State of the Union address, as the president is giving it. Why bother? They could have just stayed home and read that on their own. So it's the same kind of idea. I mean, certainly people don't have a text when they're sitting listening to the president giving a State of the Union address. So that's why we don't have missalettes. It's not, we don't come to Mass to read a book. We come to Mass to listen to each other, to look at each other, to be attentive to each other. So another thing that somebody said in the synodal consultation is they missed the offering of the blood of Christ during communion. Well, let me tell you something. Jesus misses you receiving from that too. Because every Mass he says, this is my blood, take it and drink it. So it is our intention, and we're starting to plan for it right now, that starting with Holy Thursday during Holy Week, during the Easter Triduum, we will begin offering the chalice, the blood of Christ, to anybody who wishes to come and receive this wonderful gift from the Lord at Holy Communion. So that's coming up in Holy Week with Holy Thursday. We're beginning to plan for that, and that is our intention. So please pray for me. On Saturday, I will be at the Diocesan Youth Convention giving a breakout session on Jesus through the eyes of St. Teresa of Jesus. And I'm also going to be hearing confessions for a lot of the youth and celebrating at their Mass with the bishop. But I'm still working on preparing for that session, so please pray for me as I do that. And keep in mind, too, that on Sunday, after the 8 o'clock Mass, the Knights of Columbus will provide a great breakfast at a great cost. So come and share fellowship with each other over breakfast on Sunday. So see you in church.